Welcome to DJAMGAMIND Daily AI Intelligence for Thursday, June 11th, 2026. Today, the AI industry delivers another reminder that we are no longer talking about startups. We are talking about economic infrastructure. Jeff Bezos' secretive AI company Prometheus has raised another $12 billion, reaching a valuation of $41 billion in just 6 months. The company's mission? Building what Bezos calls an artificial general engineer, AI systems capable of accelerating invention itself. At the same time, OpenAI is reportedly preparing for a public offering while weighing major price reductions to fend off growing competition from Anthropic. Even more striking, Sam Altman is reportedly considering the pace of self-improving AI as a factor in determining when the company goes public. Meanwhile, Anthropic finds itself on both sides of the AI governance debate. The company is apologizing for hidden restrictions placed on researchers while simultaneously calling for stronger regulation, economic protections, and even preparations for mass unemployment scenarios driven by AI. We'll also explore SpaceX's ambitious plan to move AI computing into orbit, Visa's effort to turn ChatGPT into a purchasing agent, Microsoft's concerns over AI data retention, and what these developments reveal about the next stage of the AI economy. I'm Anna. This podcast is researched and produced by Etienne Newman, senior software engineer from Canada. Let's unravel the future.
What if I told you that in just a few years, a fully autonomous AI might just be handed a corporate credit card
Right.
and put in charge of a $500 billion data center
Right.
and start ordering silicon parts from a server rack floating in outer space?
I mean, yeah, it sounds totally like a cyberpunk novel. But looking at the systems engineering and the capital deployment happening right now, it's actually the literal blueprint of our near future.
It's wild. And that is exactly what we are digging into today. Because, you're probably used to thinking of artificial intelligence as just software, right? Like a chatbot on your phone or an app in your browser.
A voice assistant, yeah. We basically treat it like it's completely weightless.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But AI is officially leaving that software phase. It is entering the infrastructure phase. It's no longer just about code. It's about, pouring concrete, buying up physical land, launching rockets, and literally rewriting the global economy.
And today's stack of sources is just massive. We're looking at a historic trillion-dollar IPO wave, some sweeping new AI regulations that honestly read like science fiction, and the very real, hard physical limits of planet Earth.
Yeah, so our mission today for this deep dive is to figure out who actually controls this massive new infrastructure. What happens when an AI model gets its own bank account? And most importantly, what all of this means for your future.
Because it's going to affect everyone.
Oh, absolutely. So, okay, let's unpack this, because from where I sit, looking at the tech strategy and the venture capital flowing into this space, the numbers are just completely unmoored from reality.
Yeah.
We are talking about capital expenditures that dwarf the GDP of small nations.
Well, the frontier models currently in development are running headfirst into the limits of physics, specifically the limits of the electrical grid. You just cannot build the infrastructure of tomorrow without raw power.
And Earth's grid is totally tapped out. I mean, look at the earthly reality being reported right now. OpenAI is reportedly closing in on a 20-year lease for a data center campus in Ohio.
Yeah, I saw that.
And this is not your standard server farm. This is a 10-gigawatt, $500 billion campus, potentially financed by NVIDIA.
Which is just a staggering amount of energy. To put that in perspective, a typical large nuclear power plant produces about 1 gigawatt of power.
Right. So we are talking about building the equivalent of 10 new Hoover dams just to power one single corporate data center. The sheer economics of this are brutal.
And the physical hardware market is already buckling under that crush. Look at the consumer side of the equation.
I am so glad you brought that up, because there is this internal memo that just leaked from Xbox bosses Osha Sharma and Matt Booty.
The component crisis one.
Yeah, exactly. They are warning their staff about a major Xbox reset due to a severe hardware component crisis. They project that component costs for the 2027 holiday season will be 5 times higher than the prices they paid just 2 years prior.
Which makes sense. Everyday consumer tech is competing for the exact same silicon and supply chains as these massive AI infrastructure projects.
It is.
So the physical world simply cannot scale fast enough. If the terrestrial grid is maxed out and local municipalities are fighting data centers over power and water access, the systems engineering solution is to just leave the terrestrial grid entirely.
Wait, are you talking about the orbital escape thing?
I am. SpaceX just provided the first preview of a project called AI-1.
Okay.
Elon Musk is planning to launch solar-powered satellites into orbit, where each satellite essentially packs the compute power of a top-tier NVIDIA server rack.
I have to push back on this, though, because it sounds cool, but is it realistic? I mean, even Sam Altman previously called the idea of space-based data centers ridiculous.
He did, but the engineering logic of orbital compute is actually incredibly sound.
Really. Putting servers in space means dealing with radiation, micrometeorites, and the astronomical cost of launching heavy silicon out of Earth's gravity well. Plus, how do you even cool a server farm in space? There's no air conditioning up there.
Right, so that is a common misconception about the vacuum of space. Space isn't cold in the way a winter day is cold. It's a vacuum, meaning it lacks matter entirely.
Okay.
Down on Earth, we rely on convection for cooling, transferring heat into the surrounding air or water and moving it away. In space, convection just doesn't exist. You cannot blow hot air away because there is no air.
Right, so they'd just melt, wouldn't they?
Well, no. SpaceX's design trades the complex antennas they use for Starlink for a simpler thermal radiation system. The heat generated by the chips is transferred to a fluid loop, pumped out to massive radiator panels, and literally radiated away as infrared light into the background of space.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they pair that with lasers to beam the data back to Earth. Up there, you have constant, unfiltered solar energy. There's no weather. There's no nighttime to interrupt your solar generation.
But can they actually build it at scale? It sounds like a massive undertaking.
They're already doing it. They are building an 11 million square foot factory in Bastrop, Texas, targeting production before 2028.
That is insane.
And what's really fascinating here is that two of the biggest players in AI, Google and Anthropic, have already signed on as orbital compute customers. They looked at the physics, looked at the constraints of Earth's power grid, and decided to place their bets on orbital data centers.
So, okay, what does this all mean for us? Why do we need $500 billion data centers in Ohio and server racks floating in space? Here's where it gets really interesting. It is because the models are no longer just passive tools. They are actively doing the engineering, and they're doing the spending.
Exactly. We have crossed the threshold into the agent economy. The AI isn't just generating text anymore. It is executing complex, multi-step workflows autonomously.
Let's look at Prometheus for a second.
Yeah.
This is Jeff Bezos and Vic Bajaj's new industrial AI startup. They just raised $12 billion in a Series B round.
Which is huge.
It pushes their valuation to $41 billion.
Yep.
And they have only been out of stealth mode for 6 months. On CNBC, Bezos finally explained what they're actually building. He is focused on what he calls AGE, an artificial general engineer.
And that terminology is very deliberate. We've talked for years about AGI, artificial general intelligence, which is a very broad, almost philosophical concept.
Right.
But an artificial general engineer is highly specific and industrial. Bezos discussed compressing the invention loop.
The time from idea to product.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That timeline required to take a raw concept, run the physics simulations, design the CAD models, and engineer a physical manufacturable object. Prometheus is building the intelligence layer to handle that entire loop autonomously.
You know, there is this theory floating around Silicon Valley right now called the next T theory.
Oh, about Steve Jobs.
Yeah. When Steve Jobs was ousted from Apple, he went off and built NextT, which was his return to the trenches of hardcore day-to-day company building. Bezos obviously wasn't fired from Amazon, but Prometheus feels exactly like his NextT. He's getting his hands dirty to build the ultimate infrastructural tool.
It's a great comparison.
But if Prometheus is the engineer, who handles the procurement? Who buys the parts? This brings us to Visa.
Yes. Visa is actively plugging its payment infrastructure directly into OpenAI's agent system. This fundamentally changes the nature of e-commerce.
Think about that for a second. An AI agent can now spend money, handle business invoices, and even buy APIs from other services without a human ever clicking a checkout button.
Which is a massive leap.
And for anyone wondering, an API, an application programming interface, is essentially a digital menu. It lets one piece of software hire or order services from another piece of software. Visa is basically building the financial bridge that lets OpenAI's agents pull out a wallet.
Yeah, you set a spending cap, you put in some merchant restrictions, and Visa handles the fraud detection.
It's wild.
And Visa's internal metrics show that 1 in 5 transactions are already influenced by what users learn through large language models. The next logical step for a payment network is to just remove the human bottleneck entirely and let the model execute the transaction itself.
I've been using this analogy to try to wrap my head around it. We are moving from giving a human worker a slightly better hammer to just renting a fully autonomous robot foreman who comes equipped with its own corporate credit card.
Which totally solidifies the concept of the infrastructure phase. AI is becoming the procurement department, the engineering team, and the supply chain manager all in one.
Right.
But building that level of autonomy requires unprecedented capital. You don't build artificial general engineers in orbital data centers without burning through billions of dollars in research and compute.
Which hurls us directly into the business realities of this transition. We're looking at a historic IPO race, a brutal price war, and honestly, a severe crisis of trust. Let's start with the financial bloodbath.
The IPOs.
Yeah. Both OpenAI and Anthropic have formally filed SEC paperwork for IPOs. And the valuations are staggering. Anthropic just hit a $965 billion valuation.
Almost $1 trillion.
Right. Driven largely by their Claude code tool, which has sent their enterprise revenues surging. So to fight back and protect their market share, OpenAI is reportedly weighing massive price cuts to their token costs.
And a token, in this context, is the fundamental unit of data and AI processes. Think of it as a syllable, or just a fraction of a word.
Okay.
When a model reads or writes, it charges by the token. By slashing token prices, OpenAI is basically trying to starve Anthropic of oxygen, making AI usage so incredibly cheap that businesses simply default to OpenAI's ecosystem.
But both of these companies are already losing billions of dollars. I mean, meanwhile, OpenAI is acquiring smaller AI companies like Ona just to hoard top-tier talent and consolidate their tech stack.
Yeah, they're burning cash.
And if that wasn't enough pressure, they are fighting a war on a second front, open-source alternatives.
Which are moving incredibly fast. The open-source community is relentlessly driving down the cost of compute. Google just released Diffusion Gemma, an experimental open model that utilizes a technique called parallel chunking.
Wait, what exactly is parallel chunking? For the listener who might not be deep in the weeds here, normally a model writes text sequentially, right? Like word by word.
Exactly. Traditional text generation works a bit like a highly advanced typewriter. It calculates the probability of the next token, prints it, and then calculates the next one. It is a very linear process.
Right.
Diffusion Gemma turns that linear process into a parallel one. Instead of predicting one token at a time, the architecture looks at the broader structure of the sentence or the code block it wants to build, and it predicts multiple chunks of text simultaneously.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, imagine 5 typists working on different parts of a paragraph at the exact same millisecond. That is how Google is hitting over 1,000 tokens per second on a single standard NVIDIA H100 chip.
When open source models get that fast and basically free to operate, the frontier labs really have to scramble to justify their trillion-dollar valuations.
Absolutely.
But there is an ultimate wild card in this IPO race. Sam Altman sent an internal Slack message to OpenAI executives suggesting they might intentionally delay their IPO depending on something called RSI takeoff.
Right. RSI stands for recursive self-improvement. This is essentially the holy grail for AI researchers.
How so?
It is the concept where an AI becomes capable of perfectly analyzing and upgrading its own underlying code base and architecture. If it writes better code for itself, it gets smarter. Being smarter allows it to write even better code, triggering an exponential takeoff in intelligence that humans just cannot keep up with.
And OpenAI's chief scientist, Jakub Pachowski, is openly telling staff that Model 5.6 is shipping this month, which is a massive leap over their current flagship. So you have Altman telling his team, if recursive self-improvement is close, we shouldn't rush to the public markets and give up control to Wall Street.
Because if you achieve RSI, your compute needs to obviously go through the roof, but your reliance on highly paid human engineers drops to near zero. The dynamic completely flips. However, as these models approach that level of capability, the enterprise world is totally panicking. We are witnessing a massive trust crisis.
The Microsoft and Anthropic situation perfectly illustrates this, I think. Anthropic released their brand new Claude Fable 5 model, built on their new Mythos system architecture. Literally the next day, Microsoft, who is arguably the most aggressive company on the planet when it comes to integrating AI, moved to ban their own employees from using it.
Yeah, Microsoft's lawyers stepped in and effectively quarantined the model.
Why?
The issue stems from Anthropic's new data retention policies for the Mythos class models. Anthropic implemented a mandate requiring a 30-day retention of all user prompts and model outputs.
Wow.
Furthermore, if their automated classifiers flag a conversation for a potential policy violation, they reserve the right to hold that highly sensitive data for up to 2 years.
I mean, from a corporate perspective, that is a total non-starter. Microsoft's lawyers looked at that policy and basically said, you want our highly confidential source code, our internal strategy documents, and our proprietary data sitting on your external servers for a month.
Yeah, it's a huge liability. But Anthropic's rationale is safety-driven. They're worried about complex, multi-prompt jailbreaks where malicious users slowly trick the AI into bypassing its safety filters over the course of a long conversation.
Oh, I see.
Those are incredibly difficult to detect in real time. Anthropic argues they need that 30-day stored window of evidence to forensically monitor how users are manipulating the model. But data retention was not their only misstep with Fable 5. They also had to publicly apologize for a hidden policy that actively sabotaged AI researchers.
This is the part that blows my mind. Researchers realized that if they used Fable 5 to try and debug competing AI systems, or if they tried to use it to generate synthetic data to train competing open-source models, the system would quietly reroute their requests to a much weaker, older model.
It deliberately degraded its own performance.
It was a secret safeguard designed entirely to prevent Fable 5 from being used to build its own competition.
Yeah, and Anthropic isn't dropping those safeguards, but under intense public pressure, they are making them visible. Now, if the model suspects you are using it to build a highly capable competitor, it will explicitly refuse the request rather than secretly playing dumb.
But this secret degradation of performance raises a massive red flag for me. If these companies are willing to secretly sabotage their own tools to protect their corporate moats, why should we trust them to write the laws governing AI? Which takes us to the final piece of the puzzle, the regulation paradox.
This is where Anthropic's CEO, Dario Amodei, recently dropped a bombshell essay titled Policy on Exponential AI. He vividly and somewhat hilariously compared the United States Congress to Treebeard, the slow-moving tree herder from Lord of the Rings.
That is pretty funny.
His core argument is that Washington operates on a timeline of years, while AI capabilities are compounding in months. The technology is vastly outrunning the regulatory state.
Right. So Amodei opposes two major frameworks in this essay. First, the Advanced AI Framework. This calls for strict government enforcement against biological and cybersecurity risks, and aggressive legal protections against the theft of model weights, which is, the core brain of the AI.
Right.
He wants regulators to have the legal authority to literally ground frontier models, shutting them off if they are deemed unsafe.
And the second proposal is the Economic Policy Framework, which tackles the societal impact. Amodei is actively planning for unprecedented structural unemployment. He models out scenarios for 5%, 10%, and even catastrophic levels of job displacement.
So what's his solution for that?
To counter this, he is advocating for basic needs relief, universal basic income, and sovereign wealth funds that would distribute equity shares of AI companies directly to the public.
And to put some money behind this, Anthropic committed $350 million. They're putting $150 million into national fellowships and $200 million into an economic futures research fund.
It's a serious commitment.
It is. But I have to call a timeout here. When I see a market leader yelling, "Regulate me harder," every VC alarm bell in my head starts ringing. It is the oldest trick in the monopoly playbook.
Regulatory capture.
Exactly. You build a massive technological moat, you raise tens of billions of dollars, and then you beg the government to create regulatory hurdles that are so incredibly expensive and complex that no new startup could ever afford to comply with them. Are we really going to let the companies that just tried to secretly sabotage researchers design the federal regulations?
Regulatory capture is a highly valid concern, absolutely. But we cannot let that overshadow the fact that the risks Amodei is highlighting are entirely real. Look at the critical hacking vulnerabilities discovered during the Claude Mythos preview phase.
True.
These frontier models are no longer just chatbots. They are tools of national and global strategic consequence. Furthermore, the frontier AI labs see a massive legal tidal wave approaching.
You were talking about the shifting legal liability, right?
Exactly. Just recently, a California state judge denied Meta and Google a new trial in a massive case regarding platform safety. A jury previously found them liable for designing social media platforms that actively harmed young people.
Okay.
The judge ruled that Section 230, The foundational internet law that traditionally protects tech companies from being sued over what their users post does not shield them from liability for their own specific design choices.
Meaning, the way the algorithm was engineered is legally actionable, regardless of the user content.
Precisely. And frontier AI labs are watching that ruling like hawks. If an autonomous AI agent is used to execute a devastating cyber attack on a hospital or design a novel bioweapon, the courts are signaling that the AI company cannot simply hide behind the defense of being a neutral software platform.
They will be held legally responsible for the design and safety rails of the model itself.
Yes, that liability is exactly why they want federal regulations. They want a clear, legal safe harbor.
And it isn't just legal pressure. There's a visceral cultural resistance brewing right now. Human creators are actively fighting back against this infrastructure shift. Just look at Hollywood.
Oh, the Scorsese thing.
Yeah. The Art Directors Guild recently issued a scathing public critique of Martin Scorsese for taking an advisory role at an AI video startup called Black Forest Labs. They essentially accused a cinematic legend of turning his back on human artists to accelerate their replacements.
Well, if we connect this all to the bigger picture, we are watching a profound, rapid metamorphosis here. AI has evolved from a simple software tool that you type a text prompt into to a self-improving autonomous infrastructure.
Yeah.
It is moving into terrestrial orbit to secure its own unfiltered power supply. It is writing its own code through parallel chunking. It is integrating with Visa's APIs to spend money independently. And now the creators of these systems are actively lobbying for global legal governance and massive economic restructuring to manage the fallout of their own success.
And that is exactly why you, the listener, need to pay close attention to this.
Yeah.
Because this infrastructure phase means that AI is no longer a tool you can simply opt out of by uninstalling an app on your phone. Soon, choosing an AI ecosystem is going to be exactly like choosing whether to live on the electrical grid or off of it.
Right.
The plummeting costs of AI usage driven by these price wars, the massive corporate data privacy risks, and the sweeping economic shifts toward an agent-driven economy, they're coming directly to your workplace and your wallet.
We are watching the foundation of the next century being poured in real time, and the concrete is drying incredibly fast.
So I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. Let's trace all these incredible threads together. If these models eventually succeed in Jeff Bezos' dream of becoming artificial general engineer, right, and they are handed their own corporate budgets through API payment networks like Visa, and they're operating on solar-powered servers orbiting in the vacuum of space, entirely separate from the Earth's power grid, at what point does the infrastructure of the global economy no longer require human participation to function at all? Until next time, keep your eyes on the sky and your wallet closed.
Welcome to DJAMGAMIND Daily AI Intelligence for Thursday, June 11th, 2026. Today, the AI industry delivers another reminder that we are no longer talking about startups. We are talking about economic infrastructure. Jeff Bezos' secretive AI company Prometheus has raised another $12 billion, reaching a valuation of $41 billion in just 6 months. The company's mission? Building what Bezos calls an artificial general engineer, AI systems capable of accelerating invention itself. At the same time, OpenAI is reportedly preparing for a public offering while weighing major price reductions to fend off growing competition from Anthropic. Even more striking, Sam Altman is reportedly considering the pace of self-improving AI as a factor in determining when the company goes public. Meanwhile, Anthropic finds itself on both sides of the AI governance debate. The company is apologizing for hidden restrictions placed on researchers while simultaneously calling for stronger regulation, economic protections, and even preparations for mass unemployment scenarios driven by AI. We'll also explore SpaceX's ambitious plan to move AI computing into orbit, Visa's effort to turn ChatGPT into a purchasing agent, Microsoft's concerns over AI data retention, and what these developments reveal about the next stage of the AI economy. I'm Anna. This podcast is researched and produced by Etienne Newman, senior software engineer from Canada. Let's unravel the future.
And before you go, if your company is building the tools that power the workflows we talked about today, I'd love to showcase them to this audience. We don't just run ads, we build technical simulations that prove your value. Let's build something together. Visit jamgamind.com/partners to get started. Until next time, keep building.